Hey kids, today we are going to make a rock, paper, scissors game. This is going to be a lot like the dice game we made in our previous lesson. Really, all this does is add a third choice to our options. It's not too hard. What's it going to look like? Well, my game right here is pretty simple. What I have here is two characters, two cute little puppies. Player, which is me, and the computer, which is going to be the pooter. Up here, I have rock, paper, and A+ paper as always, and scissors. My simple game simply goes when I click on an object, my sprite will turn into whatever I clicked, and the computer will pick randomly between these three. It's currently coded for the house rules. Rock beats scissors, scissors cuts paper, paper covers rock. We won't get into that debate. It still doesn't make sense to me. It's set up so it should just keep running too. When I click, then the computer will make another selection. I click rock, both go, tie. Scissor cuts paper, I lost. We have another tie. Paper covers rock. Paper covers rock again, and you can see it's going through. Now this number right here corresponds to a selection. This does not correspond to scorekeeping, though that is one of the extensions for this project that you can choose to do. Well, let's go ahead and code this up. First thing I'm going to do is to get some sprites. I'm going to get rid of my cat here. Two of these sprites I had to go out on the internet to find. The paper and the scissors. They're actually there. The rock is a preloaded sprite. I'm going to set these up here. To scale these down, we actually have to go into the costumes, shrink it down so it will fit. These are going to have to be a little tiny. This is going to go over. I like to set them up in the origins, just like this one is. I'm just going to shrink this down a little more. Set that in the middle, and finally, the paper. Just going to minimize it a little so it fits better. I'm just going to line this up so it looks good. Rock, paper, scissor. Now, before we move on, let us make sure that these are named correctly. We want to make sure everything is properly named. So rock, paper, and scissor. Keep it in the same order. It'll be helpful when we get down the road. Next, we have our two dogs. One of them, well, both of them come from here. Dog 1. We are going to call this player. And the other dog, our little space dog, is going to be the computer. We aren't done yet, though, because ultimately what we have to do is move these three costumes into the player and computer sprite, because we want this sprite, both of these sprites, to change as we play. If we go to player, costumes, we can just simply upload those sprites. Again, we're going to have to shrink this down. I know, kids, compelling video. I'm just going to put this in the middle for right now. I'm definitely going to move it once the game starts going, but we don't have to do it right now because we're going to adjust it again. We still need our rock. That one is in the preloads. And rock, paper, scissors. I'm ultimately going to have a random number generator pick between 1 and 3. So it's really helpful that we move these sprites up the same. So rock, paper, scissors. We want it in the same order. Again, we want to make sure everything's named right. Rock, paper, scissors. Those are our costumes, and we have dog A and B. I'm going to do something pretty fun to this in a bit. Don't worry, but for now, we're just going to keep dog 1A and dog 1B. What we did for this, we have to do for the computer. Same thing. We're going to put the rock. And we are going to upload my 2 costumes. Same thing, shrink them down. Whoop. Scissors. Shrink it down. Whoop. Like that. Rename them. This is going to be rock, paper, and scissors. Same thing, we're going to be picking between a number 1 and 3, so we're going to correspond our costumes just like our dice game. That is all the costumes I'm going to need. For your game, you're going to need an intro screen and some other components, but for just the basic shell of the game, we are just going to leave these core components. Again, I'm just showing you the foundation, kids. Let's start coding. There's a couple things fundamentally I have to put in with anything. In the event the green flag is clicked, what do I want to have happen? Well, I want my costume to switch to let's do .A. We're going to do the same thing with player. When the flag is clicked, switch costume to dog. Let's keep it with B. He has his little tongue hanging out, and I think that's cute. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have to create some variables here because I'm going to have to control the rock, paper, and scissors, and I'm also going to have to control the player and the computer. Let's go down to my variables. First one is going to be player. We need one for the computer. Rock. Paper. And scissor. I don't need all of these displayed, really. All I need is the player and the computer, and that's right now because I'm going to use that just to check that this is 1, 2, and 3. Ultimately, that's all we're doing here is just numbers. The costumes are just aesthetics. Now that we have a variable, we also want to set that for each one. So when I hit this flag, the player one should be set to 0, and we'll do the same thing here to the computer, just to start it off. Next thing, let's deal with the user selection. How I want this to happen is when I click on one of these 3 sprites, that is going to make my selection. My selection in turn is going to change this sprite to whatever I chose. On the rock here, that means I can go to the event when this sprite is clicked. We want to change the player to the variable rock. We also want to broadcast something because I want to say, hey, this has been clicked. I'm going to broadcast the message player rock. I'm going to do this in camel case. If you remember, kids, what camel case is the first word is uncapitalized and every word after that is capitalized. So play a rock. Most of the time in coding, we can't use a space. This is just a way so we can read it. That means I'm going to broadcast play a rock. I'm going to do the same thing here now for paper. When this sprite is clicked, set the player to paper. And then we want to broadcast new message player paper. We can just dump this one into here. When we go here, we can change this one over to, we're on scissors, to scissors. Then we're going to broadcast new message player scissor. Player rock, player scissor, player paper. We have paper as a variable. That looks good. That means when these are clicked, I now have to broadcast over to my little puppy here. That means when I receive player paper, guess what I'm going to do? Switch the costume to paper. When I receive rock, switch the costume to rock. When I receive scissor, switch the costume to scissor. Let's hit the green flag here and just make sure that happens. It does. Now I can move my stuff around. That costume's entirely too big. And scissor. Same thing, a little too big for me. Want to shrink it down. And, oh, we have to change this manually with each one. So the scissor one, we're just going to have to move it down over here. You're going to have to change that based off this origin point right there. That looks pretty good. Hit the green flag and we reset. Let's move our little puppy down here. And right there. That is a cute little tongue. We're going to do something with that in a minute. Don't you worry, kids. Right there, all I had to do is readjust my centers. Once I moved the initial pup, I moved everything else. That's working pretty good, kids. All I did right there again is just setting the costume to it. Now comes the hard work, which is having the computer select something and then seeing if what we chose matches up with that. Now, when I make a selection, I also want to broadcast it over to my computer here. I think I'm going to do just a second broadcast here. And now I'm just going to do answer. Every time I click something now, I'm going to broadcast answer. And that's going to let my computer know, pick a number. How are we going to do that? Well, this one is just like our dice game. We're just going to set our computer to a random number between 1 and 3. 1 and 3 what? Well, that's going to correlate to these costumes here. That means we also have to set those things to those numbers. How I'm going to do that is when I click this green flag, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to set 3 variables, my rock, paper, scissor, to 1, 2, and 3. that means my random number is going to correlate to my costume. So when it picks, I know what it's going to do. Now, once I pick one of those three, I'm going to send another broadcast. This is going to be called Computer Answer. When I receive Computer Answer, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the costume to my variable computer. Now when I hit the green flag, mine should change to whatever I pick to, and then this should pick to a random one. Let's try it out. As you can see, it looks like it's going pretty random. It's cycling through there and going to a random number between 1 and 3. Looks like my base code is working pretty well. It also looks like I need to shrink this down. Let's go over here, shrink this just a little, move it over. The scissor costume here, let's just move that down, maybe shrink that down a little. And when I click, now it's a little normal size. So that looks pretty good. I am not done yet because sometimes I forget what happens. And we all have those friends who like to cheat a little. I know we all have them. And we want the computer to tell us who won. And how we do that is through an if and else statement. I'm going to code it. So I'm going to have all the ways the computer can win, and then one option where it loses. It seems a little confusing, but I promise you, once we start coding it out, it won't be so bad. In fact, you have seen this a couple of times already. Like I said, I want an if statement. And let's start with the easy one here. I'm going to say if the player equals rock and the computer equals rock, I want it to say tie for 2 seconds. Otherwise, keep playing. I just want to know if it works. Let's switch this over, hit the flag, keep playing. We have 2 rocks. What's the problem here? Well, if I look through my code, I can see I have one error here. It looks like instead of set, I used a change on my rock by accident. We want to set player to rock. Let's go ahead and click now. Looks like it's working better now. Let's give that one more try. There's a tie. Keep playing, and a tie. You can see how just one little line of code there change, instead of set, changed my entire code. It started adding up since it was out of bounds. There was nothing to change that to. Now that we fixed that, it's working pretty good. We got a bunch of more coding to do here, kids. What I'm going to do is I think I'm going to first do the code for all of the ties. So that's if the players equal scissors and paper. I'm going to just drag out one paper and one scissor here because we're going to do a lot of copying here in a second. This is going to be a bunch of if-else statements. So I'm going to put it in here. This is going to be a tie. Another if-else if statement. And that is also going to be a tie. Now we're just going to test it. As long as it ties, we should get the word tie. Otherwise, we should get keep playing. There's a tie. There's another tie. And tie with scissors. So it looks like that part of the code worked. That deals with the ties. Next, I'm going to code in how the computer can win with rock, paper, and scissors. Again, this is all going to be if-else if statements. So if the player has scissors, what beats scissors? The rock. That means if player gets scissors, oh, that's backwards there, kids. We're doing the computer here. So if computer gets rock and the player gets scissors, that means we lose. So we're going to type in you lose. We got to keep going, kids. Again, I'm going to switch this around here. This time, if the computer gets scissors, and what could we get to lose? Well, that would be paper. I'm going to go to our variables here, unless we have one up there. Yes, we do. If the computer gets scissors, we get paper, then we are going to lose again. Another if-else if statement. This time, we've done rock, scissors. The next thing we need here is paper. And what can we choose? Rock. Then we're going to lose. This means if the computer selects rock, we select scissors, the computer wins. If the computer picks scissors and the player picks paper, that means the computer wins. And if the computer picks paper and we pick rock, that also means the computer wins. Otherwise, you know what happens? We win, kids. Put a bunch of exclamation points after that one. Let's just get rid of some of this stuff here. And I think that's it, kids. This deals with the 3 ties and the 3 ways the computer can win, and the rest is lost. Let's see. Pick the rock, it's a tie. Rock beats scissors. I lose, scissors cuts paper. There's a tie, I win. Rock covers there. There's another tie. Rock over there. So it looks like my game is performing pretty well. Now I said I wanted to do a little something with the dog here. I just want to be cute. When the green flag gets clicked here, what I want to do is switch costume. Wait a second. And then switch costume to A and do that one more time to B. A little tongue hanging out, that just makes it look cute. I'm going to duplicate this code over to this part. This time, I'm going to go .A, .B, .C, duplicate this, down to dot D, we got to go back to dot A, and let's just get rid of this right here. Let's click the flag now. I get a little animation. I lose again, and I lose again. 3 in a row. Pretty good, kids. That right there is the backbone of a rock, paper, scissors game. Now I have these numbers here, and I can use this to keep score. And we're going to handle that in a separate video. For your project, here's going to be the requirements. You just have to put an opening or intro screen into your game. You have to make sure your user can select between rock, paper, and scissors. Visual indication of what the user selected. A visual indication of what the computer selected. A display of who won or lost. And an overall theme to your project. Pretty simple. If you want to take it a step further, you could keep score of the user and or the computer, add a streak counter for wins, animate your rock, paper, scissors game, or make a rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock game. I have a little diagram below that tells you what beats what. All you're really doing is adding 2 more options into your game. Not very hard. And super fun. Well, that's it, kids. That's your rock, paper, scissors project. As always, I look forward to what you code, and good luck.